Hey, Owen Hunt, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Hey there. How's it going? How's it going, everybody?
It's going good. Man, we just finished getting Outwitting the Devil on audio, so it's
Awesome.
exciting for us. I think we kind of really talked to you about that way back when. Yeah, Napoleon Hill's book. So
It's so
yeah,
solid. I love
yeah.
that book. It's one of my favorite books ever written. I've learned about it, I think, through like a magician's YouTube channel several years ago. And he was shocked that it was even published. But the thing about that book that's really interesting is it was never published until like 2011. It was like after his wife's death, the family wouldn't publish it until after he was far gone. And even his wife was gone, because of all the, I guess, negative attention that could have come from that.
Well, yeah. Even just his invisible counsel. I mean, and not even just it being about the devil, but I mean, the whole thing was like pretty weird, right? For a lot of people, he would meet with like at first, I think it was 9 or 10 of his like greatest idols, Napoleon and some of the founding fathers and Ford and Edison, and he would have this like imaginary council. So he
Yeah.
had and they would all sort of have their own personalities, and then he would expand that later on. And so there's a lot of metaphysical stuff in there, and then of course the conversation with the devil, which is fairly repetitive. It's still really good. I mean, it was really good timing for me, maybe, and for Darren too. Just because we've been through like this problem with the audiobooks and some challenges, and really like one of his main things was using failure as an opportunity. Like all the successful people failed. They failed lots. It's how you get through it or whatever. That there's always sort of a way to create an opportunity out of failure, that sort of that resilience. So it's good to read about that. And the definiteness of purpose, of course, is the other main big one too, which you probably get into with your reality transurfing quite a bit, right? Having that definiteness of purpose seems to be the key to all that.
I think that's really important. It's like fundamental, it's just having like a reason for being. The Japanese model is really cool too. The Ikigai, IKI, GAI, if people hadn't heard of that, Ikigai model. It's what you enjoy doing, what you love, what you're good at, and what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. There's 4 quadrants, and they kind of
Right.
like mix together. And so that's a great little tool to use as well to kind of help you to get an idea of, because if you can define your purpose, if you can have that definiteness of purpose, it's so motivating, even when you do fail. Because yeah, dude, tell me about failure. It happens over and over. Trying to be conscious in those moments is probably the most difficult part of the game, and that reality transurfing model is really good at that. Like everything's happening, unfolding exactly as it should. And then when you get beyond that, and Vadim's later work and Tufty the priestess, she's like this like goddess that like is kind of like a BDSM type of goddess, a different type of motivator altogether. But basically, she's saying everything's working out for your best interest. You're just too ignorant to understand it. You're a snail, and you see everything as a binary 1 or 0. Oh, it's bad. This is good. It's bad. This is good. And you can't see the universe working for you at large because you're so stuck on, this very, very close situation, right? So we're not having that larger picture vision, zooming out a little bit, being able to see kind of where we are in the process, what our ultimate goal is, and how this may actually help us. I mean, I still struggle with it, bro, all
Oh
the
yeah.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was that was one of Napoleon Hill's things that he got through, right? I mean, he failed a couple times during, even though he had already done like a lot of the research for his main book. He failed and had to really kind of come to grips with his. I guess that's how he sort of found his other self or whatever to get him through all that. But yeah, he really almost didn't make it out of that. Um, how do you see young people nowadays helping out young people that don't seem to have much of a purpose or much meaning or purpose? Like, I don't even know if they could even come up with the definiteness of purpose, right? It just feels like I think there's sort of a hopelessness about the world and about how they're going to get by. I mean, it's hard enough economically, so they just feel like, well, why should I even work? I can't, like, nobody can get by anyways. Like,
Yeah, it's never been easier to be a kind of a nihilist, and I understand it. Like it's, I'm sympathetic to it too. I totally hear what you mean. You've got all these people in science, even actively trying to convince people that everything is deterministic. It's a deterministic universe, and we just can't help that we're here. And a lot of like slipping on morals and slipping on our own virtues, identity, and ideals is happening because of this kind of lackadaisical sleepwalking through. Like there's no kind of, what is the point, right? Like if everything's determined and everything just unfolding like this and you don't have choice, well, what does it matter anyway? I was already going to eat a super value meal and get a milkshake, and this was already going to happen. It was all destined anyway. And I think that's really where science is. I don't want to say science. That's too big of a word, but that's where a lot of scientist type people are pushing things, or mainstream, I guess, people. They're not really even scientists, I don't think. But I had somebody come and talk on our podcast about free will not too long ago, and the whole idea of like all the self-help stuff, Napoleon Hill, Tony Robbins, Vadim Zealand, is that you have agency and you have choice. And if you don't believe that, then you're in for a world of hurt no matter what. And also moral compromise, and just I think just ultimately sliding into nihilism.
And if there's nothing after death, then why bother? Like, what's the point, right? Like, if there's no meaning, if this life isn't going to make your future lives any more important, or you're not going to be able to, remember it, but remember what you went through when you reincarnate. I mean, there's a whole different philosophy around, additional lives and the afterlife. That if you don't believe in any of that, then of course it means nothing. Right? If it's just going to be dark after, you could die anytime. So
sure. Well, and even if you don't, believe in anything after life, there's still a reason to do virtuous things. There's still a reason to do amazing things. Like I've looked a lot back into the Greek philosophy as well. Like they're undefeated for a reason. We built our entire infrastructure on of the West on Greek philosophy for a reason. So we can be certain of things. Euclidean geometry and just basic fundamental premises in philosophy, they coalesce really well with spirituality. And I think a lot of people just want to throw the West ideas and ideals away, or make them look unappealing, or in any way they can, just kind of like shit on what our heritage is as an ideology, as a philosophy. It really hasn't. And I think that a lot of that's clouded with like racial stuff and gender stuff or whatever, all that, but it has literally nothing to do with the principles. Like it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, what your background is, how much school you've attended, you can still understand principles and abide by principles. There's still a reason to have specific virtues or ethics, and uplift other people in society. One really good book that I recently discovered is based on the Socratic method, kind of pulling that back. It's called The Courage to be Disliked, and it was written by two Japanese authors, and one was a student of a gentleman that was a rival of Carl Jung, and was basically carrying on the Socratic ideology in his philosophy, and his name was Alfred Adler. Adlerian psychology or Adlerian philosophy, kind of goes by either one, but it's a great ideology as well. He starts at the beginning and kind of goes after Jung's argument. Jung and Freud were all about the trauma that happened to us, and he just says there's no such thing as trauma. I don't think I would agree with that entirely, but at the same time, if you're going to attack an argument, that's a great place to start. And his point is very simple. You can take two people who have had the same upbringing, they've had the same, household. They've had the same situation happen to them, and they will both wind up in very different places over the course of their lifetime. So it really doesn't have as much to do with the trauma as it does with the response. And that's a big part of his point too, back to the idea of agency, right? Like trauma, a lot of times I think it's like, oh, well, I can just shove it off. That's an excuse. You know, I can't do X, Y, or Z because, you know, my mom left me at home when I was young, or, you know, put a million different things in there. You know, at a certain point we have to take responsibility. And that's the other side of the coin, I guess, of agency. This is cliche as hell, right? When people are like, well, you know, it's like, what is that old saying where it's like, responsibility, it's like the hard part of basically of having choice is that you have to be responsible as well. It's a old cliche, but I think a lot of old cliches are that way for a reason. A lot of the stuff I think we get lost is when we kind of detach from responsibility, culpability, self-ownership, you know, the idea that we have agency and own ourselves.
Yeah, I totally like that. Yeah, it seems like we end up getting identified with our trauma, you know, almost like I'm an alcoholic kind of thing, which I have mixed feelings about that. But I mean, as far as like the trauma goes, like, yeah, you wouldn't want to slip into that sort of that paradigm of that's me, always traumatized
or victimized. I mean, I would say the victim is exponentially bigger than the trauma. You know, I guess they're kind of two different wings, maybe on the same bird in some sense, but there's a bunch of people that are victims that haven't even really had anything that I don't think you could really consider trauma, you know? Unless it's like the same trauma we all got, that I'm just like, come on.
Right. That's not really trauma, you know, like trauma is real. Like people have PTSD. I'm not trying to say that they don't, but most people, what they qualify as trauma is like
fucking trauma, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like I spilled a bunch of candy on the floor and my mom smacked me across the face. Like that's not trauma, dude. You know what I mean? That's just childhood. We all dealt with that, you know, like bit by a snake or like scratched by a cat. You know, it's just part of growing up and living life. And even regardless,
part of like accelerated growing up, you know, arguably a lot of that trauma is just like, whoa, holy fuck. Like,
well, yeah. And then to Graham's point at the beginning, it's like the more of that stuff you can deal with, like the more stronger and resilient you are. So now you're just being able to handle larger and larger amounts of stress. And, you know, the more that you can handle, then the more that you can accomplish and provide. So that's that's a positive thing.
Have you always been this way? How did this always been sort of the path with, I mean, now obviously you've gone the entrepreneurial route where you're doing your own thing financially as well. But what about like, what's your sort of creation story?
I mean, for me, I got into conspiracy stuff around 2012. I was also turning 30. I was just seeking pleasure at the time. I love raft guiding and being out as an adventure guide. I was doing that a bunch. I was a ski instructor and just going to raft as many whitewater rivers as I could. just enjoying like that part of life. And then when I hit 30, I don't know, I just hit a wall. And I don't know what exactly it was. Maybe some stuff on YouTube. I saw a bunch of different documentaries and things, but I started to just question the nature of reality and start to look for a little bit more information, look a little bit deeper. I mean, I was always a bit of a thinker and a bit of an artist. I was a musician in college and I kind of, scoffed at college, but I just got through it. But yeah, when I hit 30, I discovered like Alex Jones and all that in 2012. And so I was like, it completely shifted my worldview. And I got to the point where I wasn't myself anymore. Like I didn't want to be around a lot of people. I was very antisocial and not very fun to be around. And in general, I'm a pretty fun, easy to be around person. But that was part of it. So I started reaching for spirituality after a couple of years of just being alone and kind of, literally stuck in like my dad's basement or whatever, so I had to find something. So I started just digging and started looking into all the self-help stuff I could find, all the different, ideologies that I could find, the Tao, Buddhism.
What had you gone to school for?
I went to school for recreation and leisure studies.
Oh, so like Vince Vaughn and
right, in old school. Yeah, basically. Well, so there's a lot that you can do with that, but basically what I was working on, I was an environmental educator. I was teaching kids about the forest and stuff like that. And I wound up becoming an adventure guide. It's definitely in the realm of that, like outdoor education, adventure, instruction, whatever. That's kind of in the realm, as well as like government parks and recreation and education, teaching. Is technically a Bachelor of Science in Education, but it was a very well-rounded degree. I don't think they have it anymore because it sounded so easy, but they really tried to make it hard on us. But I learned a lot, actually. I read a lot of positive psychology stuff as a result of being in that major, like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, where he talks about flow theory, and we learned about that and working in groups, group dynamics, a bunch of cheesy shit, like team building and all that kind of stuff. But also
some of that's good though.
Yeah. Also, some of that is actually really can be useful, if it's done with good taste. So I did a bunch of that, and that's what led me into the adventure sort of field, and and then that's how I got started with that. And then, yeah, like I said, I kind of hit a pivotal point in 2012 when I turned 30, just like looking at all the stuff that I was missing. Historically, I felt cheated from my education. And then I started to just learn as much as I could. I would read a bunch of different books. My curiosity never really burned that bright. When you're being spoon-fed education or information and you just have to do it because it's compulsory, it's a little bit different than being like, I wonder why, trees have pine cones on them. What is that? And that's like an organic, true liberal type of education where you start asking questions and then you go on this exploration and turns out to be an adventure and you discover something. And that's what education, I think, should be. But that I didn't have that experience until much later in life, because I just kind of went through the motions with everything. And I didn't have the opportunity. Maybe I was going through a breakup at the time. Maybe a lot of different things were happening that kind of led me to look in some new places that I hadn't before. Because I was just literally living in a van down by the river for years. I mean, on purpose. It was a great life. I'm not ashamed of it, but I'll say too, there wasn't a long way to grow. There wasn't a lot that I could go from there. It's like you could become like the river manager, I guess. And you could just be like some old crusty dude that just hangs out at the raft barn and drinks PBR. And hey, man, no hate on that, but I don't know. I wanted to try something new, so I moved home. I was living in Montana. Actually,
part of it was the breakup. Part of it was it like because like my divorce definitely played a role in some stuff, and there's those moments of adversity on a personal level, not even like a business failure level, but some of those things feel like real big personal failures. You know what I mean? It's like a failure that really, and it's not even a failure all the time. It might just be a self-perceived failure, but those are the ones that seem to probably hit home the hardest and cause some real soul searching.
I think so. I mean, it was definitely a contributing factor. There were a lot, even going into, outdoor education or whatever. There was a breakup around that time too, where I was really trying to find something new, something different. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go out into the woods and explore that. That's something that I can kind of look into. So I think that definitely was a contributing factor. And it was something too, where I was just insufferable. Like, I can't blame her really for being like, I can't deal with this guy anymore. Like, he won't stop. Like, I was literally in that super annoying bargaining phase of dealing with all this new information that I had learned about, you know, being a slave in the New World Order and shit, you know, like nobody wants to hear that, not a regular person, all day. And I was literally, I would not stop about it. And I really wasn't. I really wasn't. It was a weird version of myself, because that's not really, you know, personality wise, what you get with me. I'm relatively okay to be around, but I wasn't at that time, dude.
Especially when it was still somewhat okay back then in 2012 or whenever that was.
Yeah.
Before,
well, especially
before,
then.
you know,
Yeah, because people are like, this is awesome. Life is good, dude. We get on a river and go down and get drunk every night. Like, why would you be mad about that? You know, like there's nothing to be upset about unless a bear attacks us. There's really nothing to complain about. We've got enough. And we're living this minimalist lifestyle. And back then, you know, 2012, I didn't even have a smartphone yet. I was switching my phones out depending on where I was. I would always have a temporary phone. And because like there was only AT&T service in West Virginia, and then there was only Verizon service in Montana. So I couldn't keep the same phone number. So I had a flip phone until well into 2013. But yeah, I mean, it was a completely different time then. So to come to that realization then, yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't blame anybody for kind of being like, maybe we shouldn't hang, you know. Not at that time. I had a lot of work to do and a lot of pieces to put together myself to just complete my picture of the world. I think, you know, it was like a puzzle. I needed to put some things together and kind of see a little bit more context.
So you went back to your dad's and where was that?
In Georgia. And then I started working on a tree farm here in Georgia, and then moved back to Athens because it was cheap here. I was working at a tree farm in Monroe. It was only about 20 minutes down the road. And so I moved back here in like 2013 and did that. And so that began my entrepreneurial journey. Started studying marketing and, you know, worked really hard on the tree farm. And then had my own tree farm. And then we started doing Airbnb stuff when that became a thing. And that really got me even more into entrepreneur territory. I started learning about that and then having the opportunity to do a couple different streams of revenue and stuff. So that was cool. So that really began, you know, a whole other aspect of my life and reading a lot of that spirituality, self-help kind of stuff, entrepreneurship stuff. It's kind of in the same vein. It's very much, you know, you have agency, you got to do something, you know, people aren't going to come to you. You got to go, you know, you got to go to them. If you want to go out, you know, I see Darren on Facebook, like, hey man, it's Monday, get after it. Ain't nobody go get it. Go get the thing. And so, you know, just
I kind of gave up on that because everyone's a pussy, man. I just, you know, I'm so sick and tired of the why. Honestly, I don't really even scroll through Facebook anymore. I'll just sort of post my shit and get out.
Yeah.
Because it's just a bunch of whine. And man, I see some of this shit and I'm just like, I would never post that. I mean, I wouldn't even tell that to my friend.
Like what? Like what?
Just like, you know, about how sad your life is and about how nobody likes me so much they won't even comment on this post. And I'm just like,
oh my God,
a piece of shit. I mean, it's just like, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm harsh, but it's just like I've kind of given up on trying to motivate the masses. You know what I mean? Fuck them.
I kind of have too, dude. I really kind of have too. Like the whole like, you know, multi-level marketing kind of shtick became so prevalent. And then in the 2020s and beyond, you know, all the high ticket sales coaches and all that kind of stuff. I just had to get out of that world. You know, there's just too much. It's just a cannibalistic spot. And there's so much work that you got to do to stay relevant, you know, like that's exhausting just to stay relevant. So you're like posting and inspiring. And I think the algorithms are less and less, you know, helpful to you. They're hiding your shit, you know, if it's good, you know, and it just gets more and more difficult to kind of break through. So I totally get that. And especially since the world has opened back up, it's been really nice to literally like get out and be out in society again, and do comedy again, you know, in a real room and, you know, start producing shows and doing all that kind of stuff again. You know, our main business is local, working here around in Georgia. So I'm not having to worry about being on the internet as much. There's still quite a bit of business stuff to do on the internet, and it is helpful, but it's not quite such a grind. It is such a grind. I feel bad for people who are trying to get eyes in that industry, because I think it's very valuable and helpful to be a coach. The problem is it's like a paradox, because the people who really need help usually can't afford it or don't have time. They've got huge issues to kind of break through in order to be able to get that kind of help. And then, you've got a lot of people who are screaming, who are really good salesmen, who know NLP, and they're selling each other's programs. It's coaches coaching coaches to coach. And I don't know where that ends. It's a lot. But the good thing about it, I think, is like a lot of really good information has been shared and spread. There's really not a whole lot of secret stuff. I don't know if there ever was, but the good principles and the good ideas, they kind of they resound. They kind of reverberate. Yeah. So that's
good
cool.
That's good that you're kind of just, I don't know, aware or at least lucid enough about it to be like, okay, this is like too much of a grind. Let's balance life out, not everything online. Yeah, I've been thinking about that lately too, especially with all the changes that Darren and I had to go through. Getting this audiobook podcast out and having that real scare with the revenue. Like I got to get back to physical work again for a bit here to stay on my feet, and maybe that needs to happen a little bit more. Maybe I got to find a way to sort of supplement the online thing with some physical labor, even just for, even if it does take a little bit away from long-term revenue, because we're trying to build for the long term, but
Sure.
maybe it'll just help even just me getting out, and having that balance.
Yeah, it's
squirrel away more for winter,
Yeah,
winter is coming.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I find myself doing a lot more of that type of stuff in the winter. It's like I took a break from podcasting for the summer. It's like I know I'm going to be in the woods. I know I'm going to be, doing rafting and going on, doing other types of trips and a little bit out of the loop. So I kind of took off a couple of months there, and I'm coming back to doing some podcasting and stuff. And I've been working really hard building an Instagram just for the local comedy scene here, and posting all the shows here in our little town in Georgia, in Athens, Georgia. If you go on Instagram, just go look at Athens Comedy. I've been doing everything I can to kind of put the scene together here and give people opportunities here, hosting a bunch of open mics and other shows, and just really trying to get that back going, because it's in the 2020s, like the Zoom improv and the Zoom stand up, bro. No. I never want to see that again. It was, you want to try stuff and see how it goes, but it's just not the same. It's not the same as being in the same room with people, in that physical aspect. I'm interested to see kind of what the future holds. I know, lockdowns are predicted or whatever in the future for climate stuff. I follow a couple climate accounts, and they just, man, I get so triggered at some of that shit, because they're just
like real climate accounts.
Well, they're like climate activist accounts.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I get so triggered by that shit, man. They'll be playing the same clip, from like 1997 of like a flood, and be like, this is happening in Greece right now. And then there's like a million comments that are like, become a vegan, it's because you eat meat, and then, like climate change, it's it's just, I'm not saying there's no such, I'm not a denier. I've got a bit where I'm like, I'm a climate change denier, because that's fun. I'm in denial. I'm in denial about
we'll be all kinds of deniers.
I'm in denial about a lot of things, man. Let's be honest. You know what I'm saying?
Only two genders. Ayo. I remember that wasn't a joke. Anyway, I forget what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
I lost my train of thought. It's okay. It was worth it.
About the climate change, you're going to say like,
oh, I was like, those lockdowns ain't happening. I don't think. Maybe in part of the, I don't know. I could see like certain places doing it, but at least I'm not worried about it happening where I'm at. I can't see it happening in Georgia either.
I mean, Georgia is going to be slow to adopt a lot of that stuff. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how things progress. You know, once if you push up gas prices to $8 to $10 to $15 a gallon, then people are going to be like, "What the hell?" And then
That
maybe
I think is the most dangerous thing towards revolution is the fucking gas prices and the food prices. Those are the two things that the motherfucker with an empty belly and an empty tank of gas, just like, all right, fuck you, man. I'm coming down to City Hall, or I'm, fill in the blank. But historically, it's those couple of things when the energy or the food runs out. Energy, of course, is more of a modern thing because back in the day, energy was like your horses or your firewood. Well, where's your food? And a lot it was your food was even more important back then. But when those things run out, people get riled the fuck up.
it's true. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
Don't eat your babies.
Yeah. Oh my God, Jesus, dude. Yeah, like it is going to be interesting to see. Like I try to think ahead about that because I know there's a plan, and go on a World Economic Forum and the Agenda 2030 and all that stuff. And I've seen all that, and I've seen what the cities are. I can't remember what the link was, but I looked to see what the cities for the smart cities were. And fortunately, nothing in Georgia. It was the closest was like Miami.
The 40 cities. Or
That's
whatever.
right. Yeah, something like that. That's right. and so I've been looking into that stuff just to kind of get an idea. I want to be able to plan for the future. It's like it's not about being ignorant and like manifesting a new world. One thing I think that I've recently caught on to is that in every direction you run, there is just a death cult waiting to just snatch you up and hold you in its arms. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what that death cult is titled. It could be a new age spirituality death cult. It could be an atheist death cult, a Christian death cult, anything that has some sort of an idea of, oh, well, the world has to end in order for a great paradise to happen. Like that look, run in any direction. And that's the story, and so I just, at this point, I want to get back to like reason. I want to think about like what can be done and not, because that goes back into what we were talking about, that nihilistic, I don't have control, I don't have agency, slip into, just giving up. And then of course that slides into just like, just a terrible, awful situation. I don't think it's necessary to have to go through that. I don't think that prophecy has to be fulfilled. I think we can say safely that it's usually not fulfilled. You know what I mean? People prophesy shit all the time. And we could go ahead and start building a new world, or whatever we want to call it, a better system now, instead of waiting for everything to crash and burn, if at all possible. So I don't know. The Transurfing stuff helped me because when I found it, like I was trying to change the world. And he says in that book that you can't. And when he said that, like a huge relief came over me because I want to. I mean, I still want to. I want the world to be better. Who doesn't? A lot of people, maybe, but the majority of people that I know are good people. They want to, they want to live in a just world. They want people to have opportunity. They believe in abundance. These are all these spiritual principles. And when he said that, it just like a huge weight lifted off of me. It was that, and just giving up the fight. Like that's the secret trick in Transurfing. If you skip ahead, it's giving up the fight with yourself. It's giving up the fight, period. If you have an addiction or a problem that you can't solve or fix, then you just lean into that and you own it. You just accept it, right? Like if you're a smoker and you just get a cool bong, and you become an enthusiast instead of trying to beat that habit. So you keep more of your energy, and then you wait and stave it off. And then maybe you make that change when you have more energy, but it's ultimately just about energy and letting go. Because what he talks about, pendulums or energetic informational structures, is the same as the law of hypnotic rhythm in Napoleon Hill's book. But those are all these distractions that just pull us away from ourselves and our true identity, and who like we really are at the core. And we get kind of caught into this world, this death cult, this death cult. Oh, check this out. And so when he talks about those pendulums, he's talking about like literally anything can be a pendulum, even like the volleyball club, because you can become obsessed with it and give over too much energy. And then before you know it, you have sacrificed another aspect of yourself in order to fall in line with that. And the rule of the pendulum is comply. Do as I do, compliance. And the law of the pilgrim, is to be exactly as you are and to allow other people to be exactly as they are. So that's that giving up the fight. It made a huge difference for me because I was so, I got to save the world or whatever.
Especially now, that's tough with all the distractions, like somebody's mentioning in the chats there, like distractions are many. I mean, now it's just, especially if part of your, like we were talking about, part of your presence is online, having to do a certain amount each day can end up being distractions.
Yeah, it's so easy now to be distracted, more so than ever. I mean, it happens on a daily basis. Even just, trying to focus on a single task can be undermined just in the phone ring or a text come through, and then all of a sudden just slips through the cracks. So attention is a huge, huge key. And that's one of the things that he's talking about. Attention as energy, really, and channeling your energy through your attention. And so Tufty talks a lot about that too, as that kind of gets into a little bit more complex mental kung fu or mental martial arts or whatever you might call that. That's kind of how I like to think it's being presented.
Getting back to like the young people, how would we help young people find their purpose or meaning, or what I mean? Is there anything? I know it's probably a really hard, stupid question, but
no, it's not. I think it's an excellent question. It's cheesy, but that doesn't mean it's a bad question. And a lot of things that are true are cheesy in this life. It's, as a comedian, you kind of like mock everything that's sincere, and hipsters are even worse. But the truth is the truth, whether it's hokey or not. I have a little book that I wrote on my website. It's free. You guys can download it. It's How to Find Your Purpose. It's like 10 pages. It's real short, but basically it's real encouraging. And there's a couple of different tips and tricks in there. I would say the Ikigai thing I mentioned earlier, IKIGAI, is a great thing to look into. Look up some videos on that, and then just take some time and journal. Journal about the things that you're good at, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you enjoy doing. Journal about those things, write them down on a list. And don't forget to do the opposite. Write down the things that you don't like to do, the things that you don't want to make money doing, the things the world doesn't need, so that you can exclude those things. It makes it just a more clear picture. And then I think it was, I wish I could remember this guy's name. It was years ago. And I heard him speaking, and I would love to give him credit. I think his first name was Steve. He was like a big self-help book writer and stuff, but I can't remember his full name, but he kind of went on to do different things. But he said, if you want to know what your purpose is, just sit down and write what you think it might be for 30 minutes. And then when you write something that, I don't think you have to cry. But when you write something that makes you cry, is what he says, then that's your purpose. His name was Steve Pavlina. I remember. He wrote a bunch of good books, and I heard him say that, and it stuck with me, and I tried it myself, and it seemed to work for me. But it's kind of like a mission statement or something like that when you create a business or whatever. If you have some sort of north, some reason why, you can ask what that is. It could be another person in your life, even if whatever it doesn't
have to be big, right? It doesn't have to be big. It could be super small.
It could be very simple. Mine's real simple. It's just to bring other people joy. So I try to remember that. And if I can stay conscious of it and on top of it, then when I'm in the line at Home Depot, you know what I'm saying? Like I can cheer up the lady who's behind me or whatever. And that is me fulfilling my purpose. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. 100%. Yeah. And so that just kind of leads to that next thing. I think what we bring into the world is there. It's like if we were bringing into a bunch of negative energy and anger, we are actively kind of bringing that in. We are like, I guess I would say like amplifiers. So like whatever your energy is, however you feel, like you're kind of broadcasting that. So keeping that in mind, that's something that I've definitely noticed. And sometimes it's hard. I get into a shitty mood, I don't want to be on stage. I don't want to be at an open mic and I just get all sour, or I'm grumpy. I wake up grumpy or whatever. These things, they happen, but keeping that at the top of your mind, it can help you from like getting sucked into, because what used to happen to me was one bad thing would go wrong, and then the rest of my day would go haywire as a result of it. It would just lead to the next comedy of errors. And then I would just go super negative within myself, just unravel, just come fucking undone. And because of one little problem that was actually really easy to solve. So just becoming aware of that for me helped me to just be like, okay, this is a challenge. And then my sort of comfort zone has grown more and more, and I can kind of handle more and handle more and handle more. And I think as a result of that, you start to have a little bit more resilience and a little bit more success over time. And then you can kind of see that pattern. It's like patience is really hard at first, but when you get a little reward, a little taste of it, it's awesome. It feels really good. So just keeping whatever that is at the top of your mind, you can put it on your mirror, or you can put it in your car when you drive, just like your little mantra, whatever works. That's what I would work with people on a lot of times when I would be coaching, is like, I want you to have a purpose statement. And I've done other things as well, when you get into acting, and when you get into a lot of the art stuff, like Hollywood story writers and psychologists and stuff, they have a lot of other tools and things that are really interesting too, as far as like how you come across, how people perceive of you, understanding yourself in context, authenticity, that kind of stuff, which is really interesting too. So once you find that purpose, is really just that's the beginning of a huge realm of discovery. You can learn amazing things about yourself and how you come across as a person. And I think that's, just how to kind of continue that search. But start with for the young people, start with that question. Just ask yourself.
What if they have a purpose that's so too big, like way really big, like too out of like literally like just out of reach, maybe, like maybe they could do it, but what?
Like become new Jesus?
Antichrist? Yeah.
No, I was thinking like, it's still in this physical realm, but it might even be a career choice, but it's just so, almost intangible. Like how would you maybe give advice to pare that down to like mini purposes within that or something? Or
yeah, I think you'd take it like any strategy and just small chunk it. Somebody says they're a student in the chat. Like, I didn't see the value of being a student. My dad really did. My grandparents really did. Like, I don't see the value of a degree even now, but the going through school for 4 years, or in my case, 7 or 8, and getting a degree and doing something that takes a long time, there's a virtue there. There's something to that. And I think that's a good thing. Small chunking those things down to a larger goal, a larger vision. That's really what strategy is all about. In the military, they have the end goal here, and then they just step it down backwards, and they backwards strategize it to themselves. Okay, well, before we have this final thing done, what do we have to have done before that? Okay, what do we need to have done before that? And what do we need to have done before that? And then just make it like a little ladder. So the first thing, as a comedian, it's like you got to get a type 5. And then you got a type 5. Now you can have a type 5. You can do 5 minutes of comedy, and then you want to get 10, 15, and 20. And then you want to get 30 or more in headline. So there's a clear, thing. It's like you start out, you're like, well, I'm going to do my Netflix special or whatever, whatever your goal is. Everybody's is different. And then you just pare down from there, so that over the course of 5, 10, 15 years, usually is about how long it takes to really, get good at that and master that. You
want to test a bit out on us, or
test a bit? Oh boy, I've got some dark stuff I've been working on recently, but yeah, definitely the climate change denier one I've been working on. I think that's a funny thing to say to an audience. As soon as you say, I just learned that I'm a climate change denier, but of course I'm in denial about a lot of things. I've got a closet full of medium t-shirts, and I've got, you know, I've got a drawer full of Magnum condoms, you know. But yeah, I'm really trying to like work on some new material that I don't know is hopefully talking about, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough doing comedy to normies because it's like I would do something completely different depending on what the crowd was. You know, if it was a crowd of people like us, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm working on, I don't know if it will work, but I've been working on another bit. And this might actually be too close to home. this might sour the vibe of the podcast. No, I think it's a good concept. So I think porn destroys lives. It destroys families. You know, when I was a kid, we all had to share a computer, and everyone would use the same computer, the family computer. And my mom and dad divorced actually because they found porn. My mom found porn on the computer. And one day she came up to me and she said, "Son, have you been watching porn on the computer?" And I said, "No, ma'am. Must have been dad." So, uh-oh. And so like a lot of parents will tell their kids, "Son, it was not your fault that we got a divorce." But in my case, that's just not true. So that's a fun little bit that I've been working on. I don't know how true it actually is, but I think it'll make people very uncomfortable, at least for 75% of it. And that's the fun part, right? Like you never hear it's never the kid's fault, you know, but that's, I guess, the joke.
I think it's a kid's fault quite a bit on some level. Anyway, let's switch gears. How are you going to deal with the lockdowns if they try and lock you down again?
I don't know. That's something I don't know. I want to think about like what car to buy. You know, do I need to buy a freaking electric car? I don't want an electric car. You know,
No.
I'm not interested really. I wanted one when they first came out. I was like, "Oh, cool, a Tesla. Ooh, I want one of those." When they first came out, but then I don't know, anything that's cool, I'm just going to be against it. If it's like popular, I'm going to hate it. I don't know. There's something in me where I can't get on board with anything that is mainstream or status quo. I don't know, man. I don't,
right. The second, knowing what, you know, it's like a fool me once.
right.
Last time a lot of us were caught sort of flat footed. You know, it's like, whoa, what was going on? It was like a slow car accident and you didn't have time to really react. But now if it's going to be the same car accident again, how are we going to handle it? How are we going to be better?
I'm going to be insufferable. I'm going to turn into you online, basically. I'm going to be posting the same memes that you post all the time, Darren, if this happens again. And I'll never get booked again. And that's how that's going to go.
I think Ben Bankers just got canceled from a couple. I don't think it's the venues that have been canceling them.
No, it's not. It can't be.
Yeah, it's the venues. The venues have. So people are calling. His haters are calling. It's mostly theaters, I think. All the yucks and stuff like that are still doing it, but he's had like 4 theaters cancel on him now because the woke mob. Because he's got, you know, some trans stuff, and he's got some hilarious stuff where he pretends to be Asian.
Who is this?
You never heard Ben Bankus?
I don't know him.
He's a Canadian comedian. I went and seen him here in town at Yucks, but he's, you know, I follow him on Instagram, and he does a lot of Asian stuff, and he does like fake voices over Trudeau and Jugmeat and the rest of these fucking douchebags. So he grew some infamy on Instagram, from what I can tell, and then spun that into a comedy career. It might have been the other way around. He might have been doing comedy the whole time, but he's been, you know, going back and forth across Canada now doing shows, and he's had 4 theaters canceled because people send, you know, snippets from his set or stuff from his social media account.
I mean, dude, yeah, that's kind of the problem, right? And so I was just talking to Paranoid American, Thomas, about this, and we recorded a podcast. I don't think it's out for a while, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing that has more of a like gatekeeper aspect like comedy, because it just does. It just has that, like, the people who, it's a small community, and so like the people who are booking, they're like a little, you know, group of people who do a lot of the booking, and you know, it's difficult. It can be difficult. There's not like an independent scene over here or any of that. It's just really all kind of like it's a small world. So yeah, it's just I don't know who would be responsible exactly, but you know, you've got to kind of think outside the box. What is that guy, the big bear, what's his name, he got canceled.
Yeah.
But and he's got his own thing now. He's just doing Owen Benjamin, and he's doing his own thing. And so like, and that's respectable. But I mean, it's also really hard to do something like what, to the extent of what he's done, if you haven't already been on Rogan and have a huge following and stuff like that. It's like, I'm trying to get booked at like a 50-seat venue, you know, like I can't sell out.
Well, and that's it's scary how these people can call them, and then so what if the theater says fuck you, like we're gonna have who we want on, and then they have this campaign that calls the theater a bunch of names that aren't true, and yet that's not lawful but awful on Twitter. Like, this is how backwards the whole system is, right? They can probably make a bunch of accusations that aren't true.
Exactly.
But that's not going to be considered awful.
It happens
but
all the time.
But what Ben says is awful. Do you want to hear Ben quickly? Or
let's check him out.
Do you have some? Which one are you doing?
I don't know. I'm just picking one random.
Oh, you better let me do this then, because
what do you mean?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, play it.
I mean, I think they'll solve a lot of problems, will they not? Right? They solved the homeless problem. They're like, oh, you like camping? Oh, we built you a nice camper. It's near Foreman Road. Yeah, use the shower. Also, no more gay people. Okay, so. That's the funny thing is, if China, all the like right-wing people will be like, I don't want China to take over. They come in and be like, no more gays, no more homeless. You can smoke inside. You'd be like, fuck it. Who's the new prime minister? Xi Jinping, whatever. I don't give a fuck.
That was in Calgary. Yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's funny. That was one of the.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That was one of the shows. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Hell yeah.
Is he the one that does the Theresa Tam? Voiceover. Oh my god.
Tam.
Oh, that's funny.
Does, the monkey hybrid, who's also Asian. He's a Chinese escaped monkey hybrid.
That one's here. If you want me to play that one, you want me to play the monkey one. Oh.
Nah. Well, sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, whatever. If you don't. Yeah. If you, whatever you guys want to do.
I'll just quickly play this.
Okay.
Oh, hello. It's me. The human monkey animal hybrid. Making a laboratory a whole time. And I want to say to you, my America, you are from America. Everybody will easily entertain like a Chinese ball. Right now. Oh, hello.
That's good.
I mean, racism is funny. Let's be honest. I mean, I didn't make the rules.
Well, I don't think it's right. It's not. I mean, I don't think it's even
kind
racist.
of racism, but it's like fun racism. You know, it's not like let's gas the motherfuckers racism. It's like poking fun at our differences. It used to be fun.
So now we can't even make an accent without being racist. I mean, is that where we're at now? That's not. That's the definitions
You were
are all
actively
changing.
racist people.
Like 4 or 5 years ago, man. We're not at that. That's like back.
That's true.
That time, like a couple 100 miles back. Rumble just shut down on us. I wonder if it's got something to do with you playing that clip.
No, it can't. No, Rumble. No, we're still on YouTube. I mean,
Rumble
that's crazy.
full of Asian people.
So what were you saying about 5 years ago? What?
5 years ago, you couldn't do accents.
I know. I still don't agree with it.
Accents, like
I still don't agree with it.
You do.
You can. You just got to do it right. It's just harder. That's the thing about it, man. I mean, I think people like bad comedians cry, and they always will, because they're like, oh, I can't just say thing anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, no, that's not funny anymore, because that's just, anybody can do that. So like, you have to find a new way to do it. And I like what he's doing. There's a couple, Tyler Fisher is really, really funny. He's doing some awesome stuff. And you can do these things and still get away with them, but you just have to be like clever about it. Like, I know one guy and he's a local guy around here. He'll do a joke and he does like an Indian guy accent, and then you can feel the whole room cringe. And then he's like, I know my accent needs work. It's not very good. You know? So it breaks all the tension. So he's able to get away with it. So you just have to be smart about it. Like, that's the thing. People just want to like scream, you know, the N-word. It's like, dude, that's not funny. You know what I mean? But like,
but then the problem is they'll just get the clip of that. They only have to get the fucking 10 seconds over to the theater manager. You know what I mean? They don't have to have the whole joke. Listen to what he said. Listen to this fucking,
right.
He's pretending to be Chinese.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's a weird time. But comedy evolves, you know, like I kind of understand some people's gripes, because it's like, we've all heard that comedian bomb the incest joke so many times, dude, that I'm just like, as a person who hosts a lot of open mics, and like, I try to encourage people in the scene, I like, you just get really tired of the same like low hanging fruit. You know what I'm saying?
What's the most common joke on open mic?
I would say an incest joke or a bestiality joke is general and not done well. I mean, you can do a good bestiality joke. You know,
I don't even know what these jokes are. What do you mean an incest joke? What
like, you know, sleeping with your cousin or your sister or something. That's a, you know, like a
redneck joke, maybe.
Maybe it is a regional thing. I am in Georgia. That might have something to do with it. But,
oh, okay, I see what you mean. Like,
yeah, like a joke about that,
like an inbreeding joke type thing.
Something like that. That's probably the most common, or just something like really graphic. You know, it's because like when you first start out in comedy, you just want to get people's attention. You just want them to react. So you just got to say something that'll make them react. And that's what, you know, a lot of us do when we first start out. We just say stuff that we know will get a reaction. It's like a groaner or something. And sometimes the groaner leads to a huge laugh. I don't have a problem with it, but it's just about doing it a little bit different, you know, because if you can, even the people who don't agree with you in the audience are still going to see the humor in it. You know, there's something about something that's really good, that's guttural. Like, you can't stop yourself from actually laughing at it. You're like, oh, I don't want to, but I still do. You know, Eric Andre kind of did that with his show a few years ago when he started doing a lot of the prank kind of stuff. That's kind of his angle of things. It's like, I feel bad laughing, but I'm still laughing at this. You know, and there's a lot of, everybody's got their own style, but
I feel like you need that. You know, I feel like if you don't throw some mud at everybody, then, you know, then I start to feel weird being there. You know, if I come to your show and you just make fun of fags and black people the whole time, I'd be like, oof, that one, you know. But if you make fun of everybody,
right,
then I'm like, all right, I can, you know, he made fun of rednecks and he made fun of white people. You know, if you
made fun of Republicans and Democrats,
get everybody in there, then everyone's more willing to take the hit. And B, I don't feel like I just was at something weird.
Right. Like some, yeah.
Like,
some
I've watched
rally.
People send me clips, because I get so many clips mailed to me, and I'll watch a clip and I'm like, oof, that's pretty white supremacist. I mean, in a world where everything's white supremacist, you found some
I know what you mean. That's so funny. I agree. And that's what comedy is supposed to be about, right? Like, this should be hitting everything. Nothing should be off limits. You know, but it's also, I think we get to have our own perspective and our own point of view too, as a comedian. And it's a whole like long road to follow, but like getting that angle together, you can disagree with people and they can still find you funny. Because if you're like that grumpy old man, you know, like the things that piss off the grumpy old man aren't the same things that piss off the 25-year-old couple that's in the audience. But if he sells his perspective to him, then they're going to laugh about those things as he's describing it. You know, it's not It doesn't have to be on the same page. One of the things that I've noticed that just takes all the energy out of the room more than anything is taking a side, like actively taking a side. It's like what you're saying. You're like, somebody sent me that clip and I'm like, oh, this feels like a meeting. You know, this feels like a, you know, like an exclusive kind of weird thing where they're trying to get me to think a certain way. As soon as a comedian tries to do that, I think everyone's really turned off. You know, they're like, I'm going to back up from here because I don't really want to be on your bandwagon. It's like, as much as I don't want to be on theirs, they don't want to be on mine either.
So what do you got going on? Go ahead, Darren.
How do you see that sort of evolving through cancel culture and everything else? Because I mean, it has to stay funny. At what point is enough going to be enough? You're sort of at the forefront of it. Is that because I'm starting to see the pendulum, if not stop, at least it's, you know, it's not swinging back yet in every aspect, but it is swinging back in some sectors. And
I mean, it will
down in others, and it's stopped in some, and you know, ultimately they're going to hit and start swinging back in the other direction at different times. Where's comedy at?
I think there will be, I think it will kind of swing back, and there will be kind of more of a reactionary type scene, I would say. I think we're already seeing that, like the guy that you just kind of are showing me now, like, and several other people who know what they're doing. But it's a weird kind of, it's a weird dance to try to like pull it off. You just have to be a little bit more clever. But I do think it will swing back, and there will be more sort of more reactionary. I'm already seeing it, you know, like a lot of people
we're past peak woke.
Past peak woke, I think. Yeah, I don't think we can get any more woke. I mean, and it's so much in the comedy scene too, and it's infiltrated into the comedy scene so much that if you don't go along with it, then you're going to be ostracized from that scene, and there will eventually become an alternative scene. That's what I think will happen, you know, because the standards just get higher and higher, and then when that group of people start cannibalizing themselves and each other, then there's going to be not a lot of places to go. You know, it's like you were talking about accusations. Those false accusations, those can happen anytime. Somebody can hit you up and be like, hey, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. You don't book them, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever. And it's such a small community. So there's a lot of narcissists and gaslighters and psychopaths involved in that, just like there are in politics or acting or whatever. So it's just a weird, it's not what I wanted. I just wanted to make dick jokes. You know what I mean? I didn't want to like have to navigate 7 layers.
Culture war.
Politics.
What's your best dick joke?
I don't have one. No.
About that, they, them.
That might not go over very well.
Like a Ken doll down.
Now you could do like a cool zipper dick joke or something like that.
Right. But yeah, I think there will be. I would love for there to be. I can't wait for there to be like another, you know, sort of scene. I think that will kind of happen at some point. You know,
have you heard that right-wing conservative Italian comedian?
I have heard him. He's pretty good. Yeah, I've heard a few of his bits, and they were pretty good. I
think Darren would like them. What's his name? Do you know his name at all?
I don't know his name.
No,
I've just seen a few clips.
He seems really quite funny.
I really only, you know, it's gotta be live for me, the comedy experience. Like even Ben's reels, I don't really watch them, to be honest. I follow him on Instagram mostly to support him, but I'm not watching his stuff because for me, the comedy experience, I want to be there with all those people. Like on my Instagram reels, I want to watch shit get shot, mostly animals with bow and arrows, and shit crash into other shit from dash cams, and just, you know, a lot of fails. Fails are funny.
Yeah, fails are good. I watch a lot of comedy reels. I just appreciate the jokes, but I'm with you 100% on being in the room. It's so, you know, it's so much better. It's such a better experience. And something too, I think there's almost like comedy has almost saturated itself by so many people putting out specials. You know, nothing wrong with putting out a special. That's great. You know, put out your material. But there's just so much, like it's almost intimidating.
And it made it less likely for, I mean, I feel like I missed the era, but even when I first moved to Calgary, there was like 4 comedy clubs, and now there's like 1. You know, and it's not even every night of the week. It's like on the weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday type thing. And if you didn't have all those Netflix specials and everything else, then maybe you would have 3 or 4 and have that going, you know, as more of a thing, and maybe it would still get some support. But I guess you guys probably don't want to have to fucking travel all over the place either. You know, that's got to get old too. Like Carlin was in his book, he was always whining about living out of his car, and he was always whining though.
Yeah, he was. It's true. He was always whining.
Made a living off of whining.
And honestly, dude, I would rather, I mean, it's cool to have a home, but you know, like New York, LA, you can have a home there, but it's just because of the population density. If you live anywhere else, you know, anywhere that's not like a major metropolitan area, then you're just going to have to travel. And even those folks, they travel, like they work hard. They work out in Philly or New York or whatever, and they get out there. But you might be right. If we weren't putting so much out there on the internet, people might be more interested in going to see it live, and it's a better experience live as well. I encourage people, but also I think I'm surprised that demand just isn't what it is for it. You know, as a promoter and someone who hosts shows and produces shows myself, like it's kind of hard to get an audience out there. You know, we're out here barking on the street and pulling people down, which is awesome. It's a very cool thing to do. It's like, hey, there's a comedy show downstairs. You want to come check it out? And $7 or whatever, pulling people right off the street and into the club because there's walking traffic. But getting people to drive to a club to see a show, it's hard. And then
COVID didn't help, right?
It definitely didn't help,
Yeah.
you know. And then Facebook algorithms, and you used to be able to make a post and everyone would see it, and then you used to be able to make an event and people would see it. You know, now you pay ads and people don't even see it. You know, you're $200-$300 down the road in ads, and then you know you've had 30 clicks on your thing. It's like what is going on? So it's gotten more and more difficult to put butts in seats and to reach those people. And I think that's part of it too, with the comedy clubs closing down, is like, it's just hard to get people to wrangle in. It is cool that you kind of control your destiny, you know, as a comic, but it's a lot to consider. It's a lot to think about because you have to kind of time your campaign and when you're going to launch that and how it's going to go and all that. It's been cool to watch a lot of people do it and what their tactics are, but
I like it's opened up the aspect for a lot of different, because I don't think stand-up necessarily translates well to Instagram. Like I say, that's a live thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see a lot of like different bit stuff that wouldn't be possible up on a stage. You know what I mean? Where like, I don't know if all of it's meant to be funny, but you know, a lot of this out in public stuff lately, I'm watching Shauna sent me the dude that's always like making fun of people in mass. I get a kick out of that. You know, comedy bits where people like reacting to different stuff on the internet. Some of those guys are pretty funny, and more than anything, they like build up this huge following that then just starts producing the show on its own, right? Because once you got 100,000 people watching your shit, then you know every day a few of them are inevitably going to stumble upon some stuff and send it to you. And now you've just got this, you know, self-replicating machine. I wish I could build that with memes. I should build a memery.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool.
Owen, this has been great. Tell because we're gonna see you.
Yep.
Soon, right?
Yeah,
but less than a year.
Less than a year. Yeah, that's May, right?
That is May. Yeah, May.
Yeah, May. We're going to be hanging out in California once again at Mount Shasta. We'll get to see some cool stuff. We'll be doing some hikes and some things out there, out in Shasta. Looking forward to that. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do so. Hit me up on Instagram, Bootsy Greenwood. My website is bootsygreenwood.com. I got some comedy up there. I got my most recent set up there. You can check that out from the 40 Watt this summer. I got some good Biden jokes that are not polarizing, you know, like whether you like them or not. And nobody likes them. That's really the best part. You know, check that out. Instagram. We got a Telegram chat for the Blue Collar Mystics. You're welcome to hop in there. We talk a lot about dreams and different things like that. Reality transurfing books and stuff. If you want links to that, you can get all that stuff in our Telegram, and say hello to my friend Abby, the Dream Weaver. If you got questions about that, we talk a lot about that kind of stuff in our chat. So come check us out and find links for that on all the videos on YouTube and stuff like that as well. And yeah, come hang out with us. That's really what we need to be doing, is getting together in person. The legit bat folks were saying, even last time we were hanging, they were like, in a few months, you're not going to be able to tell if this is a real person having a conversation or just some AI generated person on this podcast or talking to you or texting you or whatever. So we need to get out in person and connecting more than ever. So come and hang out with us. And if you are in the Athens area, come see me do some comedy around here. I'm working on my business, so I'm not on the road at all really right now, doing a few things here and there. But if you're in town, come check it out and follow Athens Comedy on Instagram. You can see lots of clips and what's going on in our scene here, there. Athens Comedy on IG and athenscomedy.com.
I'm old
Thanks,
enough
buddy.
to remember when you could make fun of the president and not piss off half the country.
I mean, you're supposed to, right? Like, that's the whole point of that's like the main thing that everyone makes fun of. Like, I don't know, if you're Saturday Night Live, you're still making fun of Trump, but it used to be whoever the president was. It didn't matter who the president was. You would make fun of them. Yeah. You're supposed to make fun of the president. Even though with old Sleepy Joe, it does feel a bit like punching down. It's still worth slinging some jokes.
That's like the perfection of democracy, man.
That's right.
They finally got it to the point where they'll get it to the point where we just don't give a fuck who the president is. You just want to kill your neighbor because you voted for
right.
You caused my problem.
That's right.
All right, Owen, this has been fantastic. I guess we'll see you in May, hopefully before that. But you're welcome back here anytime. And come back real soon. Good luck down in Georgia. Let us know when you have a new dick joke.
All right, I'll let you guys know for sure. I'll holler at you guys soon too. I'm about to rev up our podcast, The Blue Collar Mystics, and I'll shout at you guys.
Right on. Okay, buddy.
All right.
All right, on. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys.
And that was a chat with the one and only Owen Hunt. What'd you think?
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Always fun to chat to Owen. I can't believe we haven't had him on.
Well, yeah, like you said, we've had him on before and multiple, but just not on his own.
Shows.
Yeah,
they're always kind of shit showy.
And thanks to people commenting in the chat and stuff. We're sort of still trying to get used to this live thing, and we'll keep doing it, I think. Yeah.
Till we don't wanna, and then we'll stop. Grimerica.ca/support. Big thanks to Owen for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening, for watching, for listening, whatever you do. We couldn't do without you. We wouldn't do without you. Tell your friends about the show. Grimerica.ca/support to support the show. Contact at the cabin for the trips. Adult Brain for the podcast. Grimerica Outlawed for the stuff that's a little more controversial. And Spam Graham. He's not getting enough email these days. Send him more.
Grimerica.com.
Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week.